still holding strong. Along the coast, the Greek encampment was in turmoil. Following an argument with King Agamemnon, the hero Achilles had decided to abandon his fellow Greeks and return to Phthia with his men. In a desperate attempt to save his fellow soldiers, Patroclus, Achilles' childhood friend and lover, offered to dress in Achilles' armor and fight in his place, therefore saving Achilles' pride without forcing him to break his promise to abandon Agamemnon. In the quiet morning before battle, Achilles dresses Patroclus and prepares to send his lover off to war. Hello. Thank you. My name is Alloquois, and I spent my entire quarantine trying to simplify the search terms archaic and Greek into something the Louvre archive could understand. Well, the truth behind the mythic city of Troy is still debated by historians and archaeologists alike. Most agree that the siege took place sometime around 1100 BCE, at the tail end of the Bronze Age. Now, while research into Bronze Age clothing is fascinating, the majority of academic research is focused around post-500 BCE depictions of clothing in amphora art. Now, for someone like me, who values historical accuracy almost too much, this lack of information makes designing clothes for any retelling of Achilles' story quite difficult. This lack of information leads to a wealth of stylized interpretations. And while not all stylizations force audiences to watch Brad Pitt wage war while dressed like a 22-year-old girl on her way to a music festival, the threat is always there. So, in a desperate attempt to avoid stylization mistakes of the past, I did as much research into the eras vaguely surrounding 1100 BCE as possible, and decided to settle my design comfortably in the time period between 500 and 300 BCE, a period from which archaeologists have unearthed a wealth of artifacts. I based my design off of 3 specific cuirasses from the Met archive, and honestly, God bless the Met and their extremely user-friendly interface. Made my work a lot easier. From my 3 favorite cuirasses, I pulled a few key details that I wanted to emulate: the hinged side attachments, the sculpted abs, and the looped shoulder attachment detail. Once I had figured out the specifics of my design, it was time to start thinking about materials. The original armor for a man of Achilles' station would have been smithed from bronze. Legend has it that Achilles' armor was smithed by Hephaestus, blacksmith of the gods himself. But I'm no blacksmith. So learning how to smith bronze, and more importantly, finding somewhere to smith bronze, was a bit of a tall order. So I had to look into other options. I did a lot of research and discovered 2 vastly different materials: leather and EVA foam. Leather can be wet molded to take on the sleek curves of the anatomical cuirass, and can be tooled and stamped to create the geometric designs popular in ancient Greece. It was basically the perfect material for what I wanted to accomplish, but it's a bit on the expensive side. So I started looking more into EVA foam. As you heard from Tess, EVA foam molds with heat, and it's popular with cosplayers because it's quite cheap. But after a little bit of experimentation, I found that as a substitute for bronze, leather is just far superior. To form the curves of the anatomical cuirass, EVA foam has to be pattern made in separate pieces and then stuck together with contact adhesive, which yields a bumpy texture, like so. While these pattern lines can be smoothed out with spack filler and spray putty, the time required to do so just didn't seem worth it when the leather could be done in one fell swoop. Once I had decided on the leather option and gathered all of my materials, I started making as fast as physically possible. Leatherworking has a lot of inactive hours associated with it. For example, you have to let the leather dry completely after you wet mold it. You have to allow yourself time to stamp and tool the entire project. And you have to allow each layer of dye on the leather to completely dry before you do the next coat. I have about 5 layers of dye, so you can see how this was a really big time concern for me. This project is an unholy combination of experimentation and first experiences. So the final product has several different methods of dyeing, tooling, and even closures. I'm sure there'll be an opportunity for all of you to take a much more personal look at this later, but as a brief example, I'll show you the shoulders. In my original design, the shoulders were one smooth piece attached to the back panel, but during a fitting, I had to split them into buckled halves with a detachable shoulder piece laid over the top, as Ryan and Albert were kind enough to demonstrate for me earlier. The buckles themselves were a bit of an experimentation, and also a departure from the period cuirasses that I looked at. I also attempted the hinged side detail, but could not for love or money get it to stay closed by itself. Hence the addition of the safety closures at the top and bottom of the cuirass, which, upon closer examination, do seem to be present in the period cuirasses, so I guess the ancient Greeks knew what they were doing or something. I started this project with a vague love of leather and an all-consuming obsession with the events of the Iliad, and honestly, I'm stunned by the results. While there are many things that I would do differently on a second go-around, what I've done is an amazing first go, and it is at least a temporary satiation of my unending need to bring the story of Patroclus and Achilles to cinemas near you. And before I get off the stage, there's a few people I have to thank because I could not have done this by myself. I need to thank Iz and Lucy, who let me sling ideas at them at all hours of the day and night. I need to thank Ryan and Albert for lending me their beautiful selves for this performance. I need to thank Meg and Sylvia, who lent me their knowledge of leather. And last but not least, I need to thank Annette Ribbons for the second time today, because without her, none of this would have been possible. Thank you.